Now, two items in the federal budget deserve additional attention: Social Security and Medicare. Here's their projected consumption of GDP going out into the future. Right now, both of them combined take about 7% of our GDP. However, down the road, they're going to consume something more like 17%. Social Security will actually level out, but Medicare is projected to grow up more so. That's the real crisis there. The point about this is that these two items will break the United States. They dwarf the current economic problems we have now with the housing crisis. This is what's going to enslave the nation. And right here, here's your enslavement. They're going to raise overall tax rates by 9% GDP. So 9% of your additional, not the tax rate is going to go up 0.09%. You're going to pay an extra 9% of your salary, almost 10%, to the federal government. So estimated in the future, you're looking at 57 to 60% of GDP will go to state and local, national, so forth, and governments. Is that socialist? Can we agree that that's socialist? We're rivaling Sweden now. Okay, Sweden's cold. Another one, healthcare. This will come, and they're talking healthcare on this, so I thought I'd throw this chart in here. Here's how much we spend per person on healthcare. The United States spends the most per person, roughly about almost $6,000. The blue is the public expenditure, meaning government. The red is private expenditure. And they say we don't spend enough on health care, or that we need a nationalized health care system. Guess what, people? We already do. Only Luxembourg and Norway spend more than us per person. All right? So if anyone, well, I just think the socialists will always go for two things: education and health care. We need to spend more money. We do? 15% of our GDP goes to health care. We need to spend more? And given Obama's pushing for nationalized health care, this will go up even more. The government needs to become more efficient, is what it does, if it should have a public expenditure on health care at all. Now, all the spending results in deficits. And again, we compare things to GDP, because GDP, obviously, you can't do nominal because you don't adjust for inflation or the size of the economy. Here's our deficits in World War I, deficits in World War II, deficits today. And we're not at war, Afghanistan, but not a global scale. The reason I bring that up, aside from the fact that you should know it, so you can say, hey, look, we're at a time of non-war, and we're spending more than you could possibly make, is here new debt per person by year. A huge demographic group of people voted for Barack Obama. I'll give you tell me if you can figure out. They voted for him because he was cool, and he had pecs, and he had really a cool wife. Who voted for him? Young people, because he was cool. It was the teen idol or American Idol election that occurred. All right? Look at how much he just saddled you with debt. Every person in the United States got an extra $5,500 in debt added to them that 1 year, and another $5,000 here, and another $4,000 there. You just got enslaved by the guy you voted for because he has nice pecs. Show this to youth. Show this to people. The soccer mom at the gas station 2 days ago, she had 3 kids in her car, an Obama sticker. It's like, wow, you voted for a guy to indebt your family upwards of about 40 grand, as far as my math can tell me. Good for you. Good to see you're thinking ahead and taking the time to look at the finances of the future that your children are going to live in. All right? Great chart to show people. Now, all this spending more than we make on the government level adds up to federal debt as a percent of GDP. And here, we're about, 2009, we're about 50%. We're going to go up to 70%. Projected out even more into the future, where are we? United States, 100% of GDP. In other words, if we all worked 1 year and we're taxed at 100% and went to pay down the federal debt, it wouldn't be enough, about 105%. Okay, Japan's at 243%. Regardless, when it comes to the debt, with the federal debt, this shows you that there are finite resources. If we keep going and spending more money, instead of actually paying down the debt, the United States government will go bankrupt. You can see this in a weakening of the US dollar. You can see this in the desire of China and Russia and other countries to create a new currency. Right? So when you want to say, hey, this is a great chart. This is the mounting cost of our sins for not being fiscally responsible. Now, that's the government. Americans, household debt as a percentage of GDP. Say 555, and we just accumulate a bunch of debt. Right? This is not government debt. This is the personal debt, housing, credit card, car loans, student loans, so forth and so on that we have. What this shows you, and the reason I bring this up, is it shows you the mentality of Americans today. The World War II generation, crazy foreign concept. They paid for what they wanted to consume. They worked up the money, and then they paid for it. Today, we don't work. Oh, work it. Oh, I want to major in sociology and become a community activist, and I'm going to borrow my money out of my house and spend my money and buy myself an SUV or a Prius or whatever people do. All right? This shows you the fiscal recklessness and idiocy of Americans. And you wonder why the government is having financial troubles? It's because Americans don't know anything about finance or personal responsibility. And they vote corresponding people into office. State budgets, all right? Again, it's the exact same thing as federal budgets. If you want to argue state politics, you got to know your state budget. Here's the Minnesota state budget. Different states have different quality. Like Minnesota's really good about putting their data up. California is horrible, absolutely horrible. But some very similar to the federal government. If only we spent more on health care and education. Health care, education. And then you throw in workforce, intergovernmental aid, which all goes to various socialist programs. All right, 75%, 3/4 of your money is spent on social stuff. The actual governance of the state government maybe consumes 20% or 15% of the budget. Poverty rate. They say, oh, the number in poverty went up. This is great. This happened under Bush. And they said, oh, poverty has gone up 7 million people. Well, didn't the population go up too? You need to have a poverty rate. Liberals and leftists will always focus on nominal numbers. They will not focus on the rate. That's your poverty rate. That's what you want to look at. The problem is what constitutes poor. In Africa, poor is less than $2 a day. Here's what the poor people have in the United States. 42% own their own home, 73% own their own truck or car, a third of them have 2 vehicles, air conditioner, refrigerator, clothes dryer, disposal, microwave, color television. 2 or more color televisions, 53%. Cable or satellite TV, 62%. 1/3 have large screen TVs. Are they poor by any stretch of the imagination on a global scale? No. All right, I'm tired about hearing about the poor. They're not poor. Let's set up a real extreme poverty rate so we can actually address the people that are poor and really do need the help. These people don't need help. Here's one of the best shots, though, ever. North Korea versus South Korea at night. This is where the 10 times the electric generation versus North Korea comes in. But let's change the goal. They're emitting a lot of carbon. Oh man, we should really become more like North Korea. All right, now here's some more literal, if you ever run into someone who's an academic or whatever, here's your mathematical proof of capitalism working. Now I've done it on many different years, but I didn't want to bore you with different charts. But here's your overall tax rate versus a 15-year growth rate in terms of GDP. So this is our spending spending as a percentage of GDP, and here's your 15-year average growth rate for all the OECD countries, which are the only countries that have enough economic data to do this. And if you look at it, the correlation is negative, minus 0.45, pretty statistically significant. All right? And what it tells you is that as your tax rates go up, your GDP growth rate goes down. This is logical. This makes sense.